On April 11th, 1912, roughly 2,200 people set sail on the largest moving object ever built by human hands, a floating palace of mahogany, brass, and electric lights, a ship so massive that walking from bow to stern took nearly 15 minutes. Most of those passengers? They weren't millionaires. They weren't celebrities. They were middle-class travellers, teachers and clergymen and honeymooners, spending their life savings on a ticket that promised them the voyage of a lifetime. This is what daily life was actually like as a second-class passenger aboard RMS Titanic. Quick thing before we set sail. If you're one of those people who actually falls asleep to these, hit subscribe so you don't miss any. And I'm always curious. Drop a comment telling me where you're listening from and what time it is there. Last week, someone said they were on a cruise ship listening to this. A cruise ship, listening to a Titanic story. I still think about that. All right, we're heading back to April 1912 tonight. But hold on, get yourself comfortable first. I mean it. Fix your pillows, grab that blanket. This one's worth settling in for. Your eyes open slowly. For a moment, you're not entirely sure where you are. The gentle hum beneath you. The slight sway. Then it comes back to you. You're aboard the RMS Titanic. Second-class cabin, somewhere in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean. Not your bed at home, not your familiar bedroom with the creaky floorboard by the door. This is a bunk made of solid mahogany, polished to a rich shine, with sheets so crisp they practically crackle when you shift beneath them. And unlike your drafty room back in London, this cabin feels almost cozy. The White Star Line has apparently spared no expense. You sit up slowly, letting your eyes adjust to the soft light filtering through the porthole. Early morning, April 11th, your first full day at sea. Yesterday was boarding day at Southampton, and honestly, the whole thing passed in such a blur of porters and customs inspections and jostling crowds that you barely remember any of it. You do remember walking up the gangway, though. That part stuck with you. The ship had looked massive from the dock, impossibly massive, like someone had taken an entire city block and decided to float it on the ocean. The hull stretched on forever in both directions, painted black and white and gold, still gleaming with that new ship shine. Millions of rivets dotting the steel plates, each one hammered in by hand by some poor soul in Belfast. You'd stopped at the threshold, looking back one last time at the crowd waving from the pier, and then stepped aboard. Into what felt less like a ship and more like a hotel that had gotten seriously lost. Wood-panelled corridors, electric lights, stewards in crisp white uniforms smiling and nodding as passengers shuffled past with their luggage, everyone looking slightly dazed, slightly overwhelmed, everyone getting hopelessly turned around in the maze of staircases and passages. You'd found your cabin eventually, dropped off your case, raced topside to watch the big hemp ropes being cast off. And slowly, so slowly you could barely feel it, Titanic had begun to drift away from England. That was yesterday. Today you intend to actually explore this floating palace. Your roommate is already awake, a young man from Argentina, dark hair falling across his forehead as he hunches over a book at the mahogany dressing table by the bed. You've exchanged a few words since boarding, pleasant enough fellow, travelling alone on his way to his brother's wedding in New York. But he seems more interested in his studies than conversation, which suits you fine. There's something restful about sharing space with someone who doesn't feel the need to fill every silence with chatter. You swing your legs over the side of the bunk and take stock of the room. It's not first class, obviously. You've heard the papers going on about the parlour suites up there, private promenades, sitting rooms with fireplaces, the sort of accommodations that cost more than your entire yearly salary. But this cabin would have been first class on any other ship you've sailed on. You took a voyage to Canada a few years back on the Empress of Britain, and your first class cabin on that ship was roughly equivalent to what you're looking at now. The walls are painted a glossy white enamel over oak panelling, clean, bright. The furniture is solid mahogany, not the cheap pine you'd expect in second class. There's a proper dressing table with a wash basin built right in, a mirror, storage shelves with plenty of space for your toiletries. Not cramped at all. In fact, it feels almost spacious. And then there are the little touches that remind you this ship was built for a new age. The electric lights, for instance. You discovered last night that they actually turn themselves off when you leave the room and switch back on when you enter. Some sort of clever clip mechanism attached to the light and the door. You spent a good 5 minutes testing it, opening and closing the door like a child with a new toy, watching the lights flicker on and off. Your roommate had looked up from his book with an expression that suggested he thought you might be a bit simple, but honestly. Automatic lights, what will they think of next? You pull on your clothes, run a hand through your hair, splash some water on your face from the basin. Your stomach is rumbling. Breakfast time. You bid farewell to your roommate, who barely glances up from his reading, and step out into the corridor. The ship's interior is quieter this early in the morning, most passengers still in their cabins, probably. You pass a steward carrying a stack of fresh towels, and he nods politely as you go by. The wood-panelled walls seem to glow in the electric light. No gas lamps here, no soot or smoke, just clean, steady illumination that makes the whole place feel somehow modern, somehow new, like the future itself has been stuffed into a hull and set afloat. You're heading for the second-class dining saloon, but you decide to take a small detour first. There's a library on this ship, an actual library with actual books, and you want to locate it now so you can find your way back later. You've got plans for that library. A helpful steward points you in the right direction. Down the promenade deck, he says, just past the entrance, can't miss it. You make your way along the deck, enjoying the view of the ocean through the windows. Grey morning light, a bit of chop on the water, nothing serious. The ship barely seems to notice, moving through the waves with a steadiness that surprises you. On your last voyage, the Mauretania, the vibration from the engines had been so intense that your water glass had actually rattled its way across the dinner table and dumped itself directly into your lap. Very dignified. Here, though, you can barely feel the engines at all, just that low, constant thrum beneath your feet, reassuring almost, like a heartbeat. And then you hear the music. You round a corner and stop. A small crowd has gathered outside what must be the library entrance, and there, in the middle of the crowd, is a string quintet. 5 musicians in neat dark suits playing a lively tune that echoes off the wood-panelled walls. You think you recognise the violinist. Dark hair, focused expression, bow dancing across the strings with easy confidence. You saw him a couple of years ago playing aboard the Mauretania, Wallace Hartley, if you remember right. The same Wallace Hartley. It hadn't occurred to you that ships would have the same musicians crossing back and forth, but of course they would. This is their job, their livelihood, playing for passengers who might toss a few coins their way if the music is good enough. You watch for a moment as a small satchel is passed around the crowd. Tips for the band, someone murmurs, just like you. They're travelling as second-class passengers. The White Star Line pays for their passage, but not much else. So tips from their fellow passengers are genuinely appreciated. You fish a few pennies from your pocket and drop them into the satchel. The music swells around you. Schumann's Happy Farmer, you think. Cheerful, energetic, a good way to start a morning at sea. You linger a moment longer, letting the music wash over you, watching the other passengers gathered around, men in tweed suits, women in walking dresses, children tugging at their parents' hands, wanting to get closer to the musicians, everyone smiling, everyone looking slightly amazed, as if they can't quite believe they're standing on the deck of a ship in the middle of the ocean, listening to live music before breakfast. It occurs to you that this is exactly what the White Star Line was going for, this sense of wonder, this feeling that you've stepped into something extraordinary. First-class passengers might have their parlour suites and their Turkish baths and their gymnasium with the electric horse. But second-class passengers get this: music in the corridors, mahogany furniture, electric lights that turn themselves on and off. Not bad for a middle-class ticket. Your stomach growls again, more insistently this time. Right, breakfast. You tear yourself away from the quintet and head for the staircase that will take you down to the dining saloon. The music fades behind you, replaced by the murmur of voices and the soft padding of footsteps on carpet. Down the gorgeous wood-panelled stairs you go, past one landing, then another. You take a wrong turn at some point and end up in a corridor you don't recognise. Backtrack, take another wrong turn, and finally spot a steward who points you in the right direction with a patient smile. He's probably been doing this all morning. The ship is a maze, a beautiful, confusing, slightly overwhelming maze. And then you walk into the dining saloon, and it takes your breath away. You'd been expecting something nice, something a step above the bare wood decking and heavy drab furniture of your childhood voyages. But this room is something else entirely. It's positively massive, the largest dining room you've ever seen on a ship, stretching away in both directions, lit by massive brass-rimmed portholes that let the morning light flood in from outside. Oak panelling covers the walls from floor to ceiling, not painted, not whitewashed. Actual oak, rich and warm and gleaming. The floor beneath your feet is covered in linoleum tiles, orange and buff, laid out in a pattern that makes the whole space feel light and airy, despite its size. And everywhere you look, there are tables, long tables with pristine white tablecloths flanked by elegant mahogany swivel chairs that have been bolted to the floor to prevent sliding. A pianist is playing something soft at the far end of the room. A piano in a dining room on a ship. You shake your head slightly, trying to take it all in. This is second class. You remember sailing with your parents as a child, visiting relatives in America. The second-class dining rooms on those ships had been cramped and dark, bare wood floors, dim lighting, food that was merely edible rather than actually good. And here you are, standing in a room that looks like it belongs in a grand hotel, complete with live piano music and china plates with the White Star Line logo printed on them in red and blue. You scan the room for your assigned seat. The numbers are on small metal plaques on the backs of the chairs. You find yours eventually, near the middle of the room, and settle into the swivel chair. It's surprisingly comfortable, padded, covered in something that feels like leather. You could get used to this. A menu on the table lays out the options. Fruit to start, then Yarmouth bloaters, which are cold-smoked herring. You've never much cared for those, honestly. Oats and hominy, which is some kind of boiled corn. Ox kidneys and bacon. Potatoes au gratin. Sausage and mashed potatoes. Grilled ham and fried eggs. Buckwheat cakes with maple syrup. Bread rolls and scones. Tea and coffee. You opt for the ham and eggs. Classic. Reliable, and you end with the buckwheat cakes, which arrive lathered in jam and are frankly delicious. Simple food, good food, washed down with strong coffee that chases the last of the morning fog from your head. The fruit is fresh, which surprises you. They must have loaded it at Southampton just yesterday. Still crisp, still sweet. You find yourself wondering what the first-class passengers are eating right now. If second class gets fresh fruit and buckwheat cakes and oak-panelled dining rooms, What on earth does first class look like? Your thoughts are interrupted by voices at your table. Other passengers are filing in, taking their assigned seats. You exchange nods and smiles as they settle in around you, and as the meal progresses, you begin to get a sense of just how varied your table mates are. There's a clerk from a bank somewhere in England, middle-aged, with a precise way of speaking that suggests years of dealing with numbers and ledgers. A Russian bookkeeper and his wife, who works as a dressmaker. She has kind eyes and speaks English with a heavy accent that requires you to lean in and listen carefully. A shop owner from Leicester, portly and cheerful, already on his second helping of sausages. A young honeymooning couple from France, so wrapped up in each other that they barely seem to notice the rest of the table exists, and a big party of travellers coming back from a trip to Guernsey in the Channel Islands, trading stories about their adventures in animated voices. The conversation flows easily. Everyone agrees the ship is a marvel. The young woman from the honeymoon couple complains that her stateroom doesn't seem to be entirely finished yet. Some of the fixtures weren't installed properly, and another passenger mentions that the heat in her room hasn't been working at all. You nod sympathetically. It's a shame, you agree, but probably to be expected on a brand new ship. They finished building this thing just weeks ago. Bound to be a few rough edges, bound to be a few things that don't quite work yet. You're secretly grateful your own cabin seems to be in working order. The coffee cup in your hand is warm. The oak walls glow in the morning light. The pianist has switched to something slower now, something gentle that drifts beneath the chatter of voices. And you sit there, full and content, surrounded by strangers who are rapidly becoming acquaintances, aboard the grandest ship ever built. Not a bad way to start a day at sea. With your belly full and the day stretching out ahead of you, you decide the next order of business is getting to know this ship, actually getting to know it, not the stumbling around and taking wrong turns of yesterday. Today you want to understand where everything is. You want to be able to walk from your cabin to the library to the dining saloon without asking a steward for directions 3 times. You rise from your seat, nodding goodbye to your table mates. The Russian dressmaker gives you a warm smile. The shop owner from Leicester is already flagging down a steward for more coffee. The honeymooning couple doesn't notice you leave at all. They're holding hands under the tablecloth and gazing at each other like the rest of the world has simply ceased to exist. Must be nice. You make your way out of the dining saloon and into the corridor, pausing to get your bearings. Right, you came down the stairs over there, which means the library should be somewhere above you and to the left, or was it to the right? You took so many wrong turns on the way down that you're not entirely sure anymore. A steward passes by and you flag him down. He's young, maybe 20, with the sort of eager-to-please expression that suggests he's new to this job and desperately wants to do well at it. "Excuse me, I'm trying to get the lay of the land. Where exactly is everything?" He brightens up, clearly happy to be useful. "Of course, sir, the library's on C deck, just above us. Smoking room's on B deck, above that. Your cabin's probably down on E or F deck, depending on your ticket. And if you want the boat deck, that's all the way up top." You thank him, and he hurries off, probably to help some other lost passenger. This ship really is a maze. 7 decks of passenger accommodations, all connected by staircases and corridors that seem designed specifically to confuse people. You're going to need a map, or maybe breadcrumbs. But then you remember something. The steward who showed you to your cabin yesterday mentioned something about an elevator, an electric lift he'd called it, available for second-class passengers, the first of its kind ever offered in second class on any ship. You've never actually ridden in an elevator before. Hotels have them sometimes, the fancy ones in London and New York, but you've always taken the stairs. Elevators seemed like something for rich people, for first-class types who couldn't be bothered to walk up a few flights. But this elevator is for second class, for people like you. You ask the next steward you see where to find it, and he points you toward the forward staircase. Sure enough, there it is, a small entrance next to the stairs with an attendant standing beside it. The attendant is young, really young, maybe 16 or 17, with bright eyes and a friendly face. He's wearing a neat uniform and standing very straight, like he's trying to look older and more professional than he actually is. "Going up, sir?" You hesitate for just a moment, then you step inside. The lift car is small but comfortable. Wood-panelled, of course. Everything on this ship is wood-panelled. There's a little folding seat against one wall, though you don't sit. The attendant closes the gate behind you, takes hold of a lever, and with a soft whirring sound, you begin to rise. It's a strange sensation, smooth, almost weightless, like being lifted by some invisible hand. You watch through the metal grating as the floors slide past. D-deck, C-deck. The attendant operates the lever with practiced ease, slowing the car as you approach B-deck, bringing it to a stop so gently you barely feel it. "B-deck, sir. Promenade and smoking room." You step out, feeling oddly pleased with yourself. You just rode an elevator on a ship in second class. Your grandmother would never believe it. The attendant catches your expression and grins. "First time in a lift, sir? Is it that obvious?" "A bit, sir, but don't worry. Most passengers are the same way. They come up and down 3 or 4 times just to try it out. Wait times get a bit long sometimes because everyone wants a go." You can believe it. There's already a small queue forming behind you, other passengers waiting for their turn to experience this novelty. You step aside to let them board. "Must be nice," you say. "Operating this thing all day? Quite the job." The young attendant's face shifts slightly. Something wistful passes across his features. He glances toward the doors that lead out to the promenade deck, where you can see passengers strolling past the windows, enjoying the fresh air. "My, I wish I could go out there sometimes," he says quietly. And then the moment passes. Another passenger steps into the lift and the attendant's professional smile snaps back into place. He closes the gate, takes hold of the lever, and begins his descent. You watch the car disappear downward, feeling suddenly grateful that you're a passenger and not crew. That you get to wander wherever you like while that boy spends his voyage going up and down, watching the ocean through windows he never gets to open. You push through the doors and step out onto the B-deck promenade. The cold hits you immediately. It's April, you remind yourself. Early April, the North Atlantic in spring. Of course it's cold, but knowing this doesn't make the wind any less sharp as it whips across the deck and cuts right through your jacket. Your cheeks sting, your eyes water. You shove your hands into your pockets and walk toward the railing, hunching your shoulders against the chill. But the view, oh, the view. The ocean stretches out in every direction, grey-green and endless, rolling in long swells that the ship barely seems to notice. The sky is overcast but bright, that particular silvery light you only get at sea, and there, off to starboard, growing closer with every passing minute, are the green hills of the Irish coast. Queenstown, the ship's next port of call. You hadn't realised you were so close. Time moves differently on a ship. The hours blur together. You'd lost track of where exactly you were in the world, focused on breakfast and elevators and getting lost in corridors. But here's Ireland, rising up out of the sea like something from a painting. Rolling green hills dotted with white cottages. The spire of a church catching the morning light. A small harbour town clustered around the waterfront. You lean against the railing and watch as the coast draws nearer. Other passengers have gathered along the deck, doing the same thing. Some are pointing, some are taking photographs with little box cameras. A few children are bouncing up and down with excitement, their parents trying unsuccessfully to calm them. The ship slows. You can feel the change in the vibration beneath your feet, the engines easing back as the massive liner approaches the anchorage. A whistle sounds somewhere overhead, long and low, announcing your arrival, and then you see the tender. It's a small paddle steamer, ridiculously tiny compared to the ocean liner it's approaching. The nameplate reads SS America. You watch it chugging toward you across the harbour, smoke puffing from its single funnel, and you can't help but smile at the contrast. It looks like a newborn cozying up to its mother, a rowboat next to a mountain. The tender draws alongside. Passengers aboard are craning their necks, staring up at the ship with expressions of pure awe. You can't blame them. From down there, at water level, Titanic must look absolutely enormous. A floating cliff face of black steel and white superstructure, stretching up and up until it blocks out half the sky. You watch as the new passengers begin to board. They're a mixed bunch, migrants mostly, from the look of them. Men in rough brown suits and bowler hats, lugging heavy old cases that probably contain everything they own. Women clutching children by the hand. A few families huddled together, looking nervous and excited and overwhelmed all at once. Third class, you assume, heading to America in search of better lives. You've read about this in the papers, the Great Migration, millions of people pouring across the Atlantic every year, leaving behind the old world for the promise of the new. These people look like they've come from all over Ireland, different counties, different villages, united only by their hope that whatever waits for them in America will be better than what they left behind. One of them looks up at you. A young man, maybe your age, with a weathered face and calloused hands. He catches your eye and waves, just a small gesture, almost shy. You wave back. What else can you do? The crew are busy now, handling the logistics of the stop, big brown sacks of mail being loaded aboard, luggage being hauled up from the tender, a few passengers actually disembarking here, their journey ending in Ireland rather than beginning. The whole process will take a couple of hours, you're told. The ship won't leave Queenstown until early afternoon. You realise, with a sudden pang of guilt, that you forgot to write to your family back home. You'd promised you would. A letter from the ship posted before you left European waters. It would have been collected with all the other mail and loaded onto one of those sacks going back to shore. But in all the excitement of boarding, you'd completely forgotten. And now it's too late. The mail's going the other direction. Your letter will have to wait until New York. Your mother is going to be disappointed. The cold is really starting to bite now, working its way through your clothes despite your best efforts to stay warm. You've been standing at the railing for nearly an hour, watching the tender go back and forth, watching the new passengers stream aboard. Time to head inside, time to find somewhere warmer. You think about the library. That cosy room the steward mentioned yesterday, with the green armchairs and the bookcases and the writing desks by the windows. That sounds perfect right now. A warm place to sit, a good book to read. Maybe you'll finally write that letter to your family, even if it won't go out until you reach America. You push away from the railing and head back toward the doors. The promenade deck is busier now than it was earlier. Passengers everywhere, clustered in small groups, chatting and laughing and pointing at the Irish coast. A few have brought deck chairs out and are huddled under wool steamer rugs, trying to enjoy the sea air without freezing to death. Children race past, playing some game that involves a lot of shrieking and running and not watching where they're going. You dodge around a pair of elderly women deep in conversation and make your way toward the staircase. The warmth of the interior hits you like a blessing as you step through the doors. Your cheeks are numb, your fingers are stiff. You flex your hands, trying to work some feeling back into them. The ship feels different now than it did this morning, more alive, more populated. The corridors that had been mostly empty at dawn are now full of passengers going about their business, stewards moving purposefully from room to room, the distant sound of music drifting from somewhere below, the constant low murmur of voices punctuated by occasional bursts of laughter. This is what an ocean voyage feels like, you think. This bustle, this energy, this sense of being part of something larger than yourself. Hundreds of people, all sharing this floating world, all heading toward the same destination. You make your way toward the library, and this time you don't get lost. The room is everything you'd hoped it would be. Warm, quiet, panelled in contrasting sycamore and dark mahogany that gives the whole space an elegant, sophisticated feel. Green armchairs and sofas are scattered around, nestled against small mahogany tables. Hourglass-shaped carvings on the walls add a subtle modern touch. Large windows let in the grey afternoon light. And books. Shelves and shelves of books arranged behind glass doors in a massive bookcase that takes up most of the forward wall. A library steward stands nearby, handing out volumes to passengers who then settle happily into the armchairs. You approach the bookcase and browse the gilded titles on the spines, travel narratives, biographies, history, romance novels, a few scientific texts that look intimidatingly dense, and there, on the second shelf from the top, a familiar title catches your eye, The Adventures of Sherlock Holmes. You've read it before, of course, everyone's read it, but there's something comforting about returning to an old favourite, something reassuring about knowing exactly what's coming next. The steward notes your selection in a little ledger, and you find a seat near one of the windows, settling into an armchair that seems to have been designed specifically to swallow you whole. Outside, the Irish coast is still visible, green and lovely in the grey light. Inside, you're surrounded by the soft sounds of pages turning, the occasional cough or murmur, the scratch of pens as other passengers write letters at the nearby desks. Someone drops their book and swears quietly. Someone else laughs at something they're reading. You open your book to the first page. And for the next several hours, you're not on a ship at all. You're in London, foggy, gaslit London, following Holmes and Watson through cobblestone streets and shadowy alleys, solving mysteries and catching criminals. The ocean might be rolling past outside your window, but in your mind's eye, you're stepping across the threshold of 221B Baker Street. Time passes without you noticing. You look up from the pages long enough to glance at a clock on the wall. Almost noon already. That can't be right. You only just sat down. You only just opened the book. But no, the clock doesn't lie, and your stomach is rumbling again. And when you think about it, you've been sitting in this armchair for the better part of 3 hours. Holmes has solved 2 cases in that time. A scandal in Bohemia. The Red-Headed League. You've been so absorbed in the stories that you completely lost track of everything else. That's the thing about ocean voyages. Time moves strangely. The hours stretch and compress in ways they never do on land. There's no commute to worry about, no appointments to keep, no errands to run, just the gentle rhythm of meals and sleep and whatever you choose to do in between. It's disorienting at first, but also, you have to admit, kind of wonderful. You hand your book back to the library steward, who notes the return in his little ledger. You'll come back for it later, maybe after dinner. For now, though, lunch is calling. You make your way toward the door, stepping carefully around passengers who are still deep in their reading. One woman is writing furiously at a desk by the window, page after page of what looks like a very long letter. Her husband must be in trouble for something. Another passenger has fallen asleep in his armchair, book open on his chest, snoring softly. No one seems inclined to wake him. You push open the door and step out. and walk directly into a metal pole. Not hard enough to hurt, but hard enough to make you stumble backward and swear under your breath. You look up, blinking, and find yourself staring at the base of what must be the ship's main mast, a massive steel column rising up through the deck and disappearing somewhere far overhead. Why exactly the designers decided to place the library door directly in front of the mast is beyond you. Someone must have looked at the blueprints and said, yes, this seems fine, let's put a giant pole right where people will be walking. Brilliant planning, top marks all around. You step awkwardly around the obstacle and head for the stairs that will take you down to the dining saloon. The room is busier now than it was at breakfast. More passengers, more noise, more stewards hurrying between tables with laden trays. You find your assigned seat and settle in, nodding to the familiar faces already gathered around the table. The Russian bookkeeper is here again, along with his dressmaker wife, the shop owner from Leicester, a few others you recognize from this morning. But some seats are empty. The honeymooning couple from France is nowhere to be seen, probably still in their cabin, and a few of the Guernsey travellers seem to have skipped lunch entirely, sleeping it off on deck chairs somewhere, you assume. The boat deck, maybe. Under steamer rugs. Beneath that massive fourth funnel that looms over the stern of the ship. The conversation at the table turns, as conversations inevitably do these days, to the situation in Europe. Germany's arming, says a man you haven't spoken to before. Middle-aged, serious face. The sort of person who reads newspapers cover to cover and has opinions about everything. Building up their navy, their army. It's obvious what they're preparing for. War, you mean? The shop owner from Leicester shakes his head. Come off it. Nobody wants a war. The Kaiser's just posturing. They all do. The French don't trust them. Neither do the Russians. The French don't trust anyone, neither do the Russians, come to think of it. You listen with half an ear, not particularly interested in getting drawn into a political debate. Personally, you think all this war talk is overblown, alarmist, the kind of thing newspapers print to sell copies. A real war, a proper European war, seems about as likely as mankind ever walking on the moon, which is to say, not very likely at all. The conversation shifts. Someone brings up the ship's progress, how fast they're going, whether they'll try to reach New York early. The Olympic did it, says the serious-faced man, arrived ahead of schedule on her maiden voyage. They might try the same thing with this one. I hope not, you find yourself saying. Arriving at night is a miserable experience, all that waiting around in the dark, and even if the White Star Line lets you stay aboard overnight, the uncertainty is annoying. This earns you a few playful jeers from around the table. Apparently you're the cautious type, the stick in the mud who doesn't want to break any speed records. Besides, you add, the Mauretania holds the speed record, has for about 3 years now. This ship isn't built for racing. You've been on the Mauretania? The Russian bookkeeper looks impressed. Or once, a couple of years ago. Nice ship. Beautiful, actually, but the vibration was shocking. One night at dinner, my water glass rattled its way across the table, past my plate, and dumped itself directly into my lap. This gets a laugh from the table. You mime the motion, sliding an imaginary glass across an imaginary table and into your imaginary lap. By contrast, you say, gesturing at the glass of water in front of you, look at this. Everyone looks. The water is perfectly still, barely a ripple on the surface. The ship might as well be sitting in a harbour for all the motion you can feel. Steady as a rock, someone murmurs. And it's true. The Titanic doesn't pitch, doesn't roll, doesn't vibrate with that teeth-rattling intensity you remember from the Mauretania. The engines are there, of course. You can feel them if you concentrate, that low, constant thrum beneath your feet, but it is subtle. Background noise, nothing like the shuddering beast that powered the Cunard liner. The stewards arrive with lunch, and the conversation gives way to eating. The food is good, really good. Better than you expected for a midday meal. Hearty pea soup to start, thick and warming, exactly what you need after spending all that time on the cold promenade deck. Then a choice of main courses. Spaghetti au gratin, corned beef with vegetable dumplings, roast mutton with potatoes. You go for the spaghetti, something different, something you wouldn't normally order. The voyage is making you adventurous. There's an assortment of cold cuts available as well. Roast beef, sausage, ox tongue, which you politely decline because there are limits to your adventurousness, pickles and salad to round things out, and for dessert, a choice between tapioca pudding, apple tart, cheese and biscuits. You opt for the tapioca pudding. Nearly everyone else at the table orders the apple tart. You briefly wonder if you've made a mistake. Then the pudding arrives and it's creamy and sweet and absolutely perfect, and you stop wondering. A small glass of beer accompanies the meal. Just one, enough to take the edge off without making you drowsy. The Russian bookkeeper is drinking wine. The shop owner from Leicester is on his third ale and showing no signs of slowing down. Different strokes for different folks. The stewards begin clearing plates. Silverware clinks against china. The murmur of conversation rises and falls, and you sit there, pleasantly full, pleasantly warm, watching the light shift through the brass-rimmed portholes as the sun moves across the sky. You rise from your seat and consider how to spend the afternoon. The library is tempting. Holmes and Watson are waiting, but you've been sitting for hours already, and your legs are starting to feel restless. Maybe some fresh air would do you good, a walk on the deck, a chance to stretch your muscles and watch the world go by. Other passengers seem to have the same idea. A small crowd is making its way toward the stairs, heading up to the promenade. You join them, climbing past one landing, then another, until you emerge onto B deck and push through the doors into the open air. The cold is still there. That sharp April chill that cuts right through your jacket, but somehow it feels less biting now than it did this morning. Maybe you're getting used to it, maybe the sun has warmed things up a bit, or maybe you're just in a better mood, full of good food and good conversation, ready to enjoy whatever the afternoon has to offer. You make your way along the promenade, looking for a spot to settle. Deck chairs have been set out in rows, and many of them are already occupied by passengers who've had the same idea. You find an empty one near the railing, pull a wool steamer rug into your lap to combat the breeze, and sit back to watch the show. Because there is a show, there's always a show on an ocean voyage. Children are playing nearby, chasing each other up and down the deck, shrieking with laughter. Their parents watch with that particular mixture of affection and exhaustion that parents always seem to have. A young woman in a nearby deck chair has curled up for a nap. The steamer rug pulled up to her chin, her hat tipped down over her eyes. You don't blame her. You could easily fall asleep yourself. You should have gotten that coffee with dessert. Further down the promenade, a group of passengers has gathered for a game of shuffleboard. You can hear their playful banter drifting on the wind. Someone accuses someone else of cheating. Someone else protests their innocence. Everyone laughs. The little pucks go sliding across the deck, clattering against each other with satisfying clacks. Strangers becoming friends, that's what happens on ships. People who would never speak to each other on land find themselves thrown together for days at a time, sharing meals and deck space and long hours with nothing to do but talk. Barriers come down, conversations flow more easily. By the time you reach New York, you'll know the life stories of half the people at your dinner table. It's strange, but also nice. A little pocket of community carved out of the vastness of the Atlantic. The ocean stretches away to the horizon, grey and endless. Ireland has disappeared behind you now, swallowed by distance and haze. There's nothing out here but water and sky and this enormous ship cutting steadily westward. New York is still days away, but somehow that doesn't bother you. Somehow the journey feels just as important as the destination. You adjust the steamer rug around your legs and settle deeper into your deck chair. A young man to your left closes the journal he's been writing in and turns to you with a friendly smile. How are you finding the voyage so far? You're not usually one to chat with strangers. Back home, you'd probably just nod politely and go back to staring at the ocean. But there's something about this place, this ship, this strange floating world, something that makes conversation feel easier, natural. You turn to face him and notice his clothing, dark suit, white collar, a clergyman by the looks of it, young for it too, maybe late 20s, early 30s. He has kind eyes and a warm expression that puts you at ease immediately. Marvellous, you say. The ship, I mean, can't quite believe it honestly. It's like being in a hotel that happens to be moving. He laughs at that. I was thinking the same thing. I keep forgetting I'm at sea. The ship is so steady you'd think we were on dry land. You've noticed that too. I was just saying at lunch I was on the Mauritania a couple of years ago and the vibration was terrible. This is nothing like that. I had a similar experience on the Kronprinsess in Sicilia. My water glass practically danced off the table. You grin. Kindred spirits, fellow survivors of rattling ocean liners. The Reverend, because that's clearly what he is, tells you about his recent fight with a head cold. Spent the first day of the voyage miserable in his cabin, he says, but thanks to some medicine from a helpful passenger, he's feeling well enough now to enjoy some time in the fresh air. You commiserate. Head colds are the worst. Especially on a voyage, when you can't just crawl into your own bed and feel sorry for yourself. The medicine was from a fellow clergyman, actually, he says, a Baptist minister from Philadelphia. We got to talking about theology and somehow ended up on the subject of patent medicines. He swore by this particular tonic, handed me a bottle from his own case. And it worked? Well, I'm sitting here talking to you instead of lying in my bunk feeling sorry for myself. So yes, I'd say it worked. He has an easy way about him, the kind of person who makes conversation feel like a gift rather than an obligation. You find yourself relaxing into the chat, letting the words flow without worrying about what to say next. He tells you about his work back home, a small parish in the north of England. Nothing glamorous. Christenings and weddings and funerals, Sunday services where the congregation knows every hymn by heart, the quiet, steady work of tending to souls. He's going to America to visit a seminary, some kind of conference or lecture series. You don't catch all the details, but he seems excited about it. His eyes light up when he talks about the speakers he's hoping to hear, the questions he's hoping to ask. It's refreshing, somehow. Meeting someone who's genuinely passionate about their work. So many people seem to merely tolerate their jobs. This man actually believes in what he does. Actually cares. The conversation meanders, the weather, the ship's daily run, speculation about when you'll arrive in New York. Neither of you seems in any hurry to end the chat. Time stretches out lazily, the way it does when you have nowhere to be. Eventually, the Reverend bids you good day with a kind smile and heads off toward the stern. You're left alone again, staring out at the ocean as it spans beyond the horizon, a vast expanse of grey-green water stretching 1,500 miles to Greenland, 1,500 miles of nothing but waves and wind and sky. You're starting to feel drowsy, all that sitting around, all that heavy food, your eyelids are getting heavy and the steamer rug is warm and the rhythmic hum of the engines is almost hypnotic. Time to move, time to stretch your legs before you fall asleep right here on the deck. You push yourself up from the chair and decide to head for the boat deck, the highest deck available to second-class passengers. The views up there are supposed to be the best on the ship, and maybe the climb will wake you up a bit. The climb wakes you up 3 flights of stairs, and by the time you reach the boat deck, you're breathing harder than you'd like to admit. Maybe you should have taken that elevator after all, but no, the exercise is good for you, burns off some of that heavy lunch. You push through the door and step out onto the highest deck available to second-class passengers. The wind hits you immediately, stronger up here, colder. It whips at your jacket and musses your hair and makes your eyes water. But the view, oh, the view. From up here, you can see everything. The ship stretches out before you, impossibly long, impossibly vast. Lifeboats hang from davits on either side, white canvas covers lashed down against the weather, ropes and cables crisscross overhead, and beyond all of it, the ocean, grey and endless, rolling away in every direction until it meets the pale line of the horizon. You make your way toward the stern, drawn by some instinct you can't quite name. The deck is less crowded up here, fewer passengers, more space to breathe. A small group of children is playing near the base of the 4th funnel, their laughter carried away by the wind. One of them looks up at you and sticks out his tongue. Charming. You think about returning the gesture, but decide against it at the last moment. Probably not dignified, probably not what a respectable second-class passenger should be doing. You settle for a raised eyebrow instead, which the child ignores completely. At the railing, you lean out and look down. Below you, separated by several decks and a clear social divide, is the first-class promenade, and there they are. The wealthy, the famous, the luminaries and celebrities whose names you've read in newspapers and society columns. They stroll along the deck in their fine clothes, chatting and laughing, utterly unaware that you're watching from above. You scan the faces, trying to match them to the names you know. That tall man with the moustache. Could that be John Jacob Astor, the richest man on the ship, one of the richest men in the world? He's supposed to be travelling with his young wife. Very young, scandalously young if you believe the gossip. There was quite a fuss about their marriage back in the States. And that other gentleman, the one in the expensive-looking overcoat, Benjamin Guggenheim, perhaps, the mining magnate. You've heard he's aboard too, travelling in grand style, the way these American millionaires always seem to. A woman walks beside him, elegant, poised. Not his wife according to the gossip you've overheard, but you didn't hear that. You don't repeat that kind of thing. It's none of your business what wealthy Americans do with their private lives. Still, it's fascinating to watch them. These people whose names appear in newspapers and society columns. In their world, they're famous, important, people who matter. Up here, looking down from the second-class deck, they're just figures in expensive clothes, strolling past like everyone else. Money doesn't make you walk any differently, you notice, doesn't make you any taller or shorter, doesn't change the basic mechanics of putting one foot in front of the other. The rich move through space just like everyone else. They just do it in nicer clothes. It's strange, watching them from up here, like peering into a different world. Their clothes are finer, their movements more languid. They walk with the easy confidence of people who have never had to worry about money, about work, about any of the 1,000 small anxieties that fill the lives of ordinary people. And yet, here you all are, same ship, same ocean, same destination. For all the differences in your circumstances, you're all in this together, all of you crossing the Atlantic on this enormous floating palace bound for the same harbour, carried by the same engines. There's something almost democratic about it when you think about it. Almost. You turn away from the railing and crane your neck upward. The 4th funnel towers above you, enormous and imposing, but something's different about it, something you didn't notice from lower decks. The 3 forward funnels are belching great clouds of smoke, dark plumes that trail behind the ship like banners. But this one, The one directly overhead is barely producing anything. Just a faint wisp, a thin thread of smoke that disappears almost as soon as it emerges. Maybe they don't need all four going at once. Maybe this one's just for show, a dummy built to make the ship look more impressive from the outside. Or maybe it's connected to the kitchens or something, ventilation for the galleys. You're not an engineer. You have no idea how these things work, but it's curious. One of those little details that makes you realize how much you don't understand about the world you're moving through. You linger at the stern a while longer, watching the wake spread out behind the ship. Two great white furrows carved into the grey water, stretching back toward the horizon, toward Ireland, toward England, toward home. Your thoughts drift backward too. You remember your first voyage, years ago when you were just a child, crossing the Atlantic with your parents to visit relatives in America. The ship had seemed enormous at the time, a grand adventure. But looking back now, you realize how different it was. The pitching and rolling, the bland food, the uncomfortable beds, the cold, cramped quarters. Sea travel has come so far since then. The Titanic feels less like a ship and more like a floating city. Electric lights, elevators, dining rooms that rival the finest restaurants on land, musicians playing in the corridors, stewards attending to your every need. You're watching history in the making. You can feel it. This is the future of travel, right here beneath your feet. The world is getting smaller. The distances that once took months to cross now take days. And ships like this one, ships that offer comfort and luxury alongside speed and safety, are making it possible for ordinary people to move between continents as easily as they might move between cities. It's a marvel, a genuine marvel. The cold is starting to seep into your bones now. The wind cuts through your jacket like it isn't even there. Time to head inside, time to warm up, and besides, you've got a letter to write. You promised your family, told them you'd send word as soon as you could. You meant to do it at Queenstown, meant to have something ready for the mail drop at Ireland, but the whole thing slipped your mind in all the excitement. Now the chance is gone. The bags have been unloaded, the tender has departed. Your letter, unwritten, will have to wait until New York. But you can write it now, at least. Get your thoughts down on paper while they're still fresh. By the time you arrive in the harbour, you'll have pages and pages to send. Your family will know everything, every detail of this magnificent ship and this unforgettable voyage. You make your way back toward the stairs, pausing at the door to take one last look at the view, the ocean, the sky, the great funnels rising against the clouds. Then you pull the door open and step inside, leaving the cold behind. The warmth of the interior hits you like a blessing. You hadn't realized how chilled you'd gotten until now. Your fingers are stiff, your nose is numb. You flex your hands, trying to work some feeling back into them, and make your way down through the ship. Back to the library, back to that warm, book-lined sanctuary with its comfortable chairs and its stewards and its quiet, studious atmosphere. The room is fuller now than it was this morning. Afternoon seems to be a popular time for reading and writing. Most of the armchairs are occupied. Several desks are in use. The gentle scratch of pen on paper mingles with the soft murmur of conversation and the ever-present hum of the engines. You find an empty table near the window and claim it for yourself. Your stationery is back in your cabin, but a helpful steward produces paper and pen when you ask. White star-line letterhead, very official looking, very impressive. Your family will love it. Physical proof that you're actually aboard this legendary ship. You sit for a moment, pen poised over the blank page, trying to decide where to begin. There's so much to tell. So much has happened in just the past 2 days. Boarding at Southampton, the train journey from London, the near collision with that other ship as the Titanic was pulling out of the harbour, the stop at Cherbourg, the stop at Queenstown, your cabin, your roommate, the food, the music, the conversations with strangers who are rapidly becoming friends. You start from the beginning, the only sensible place to start. The words come slowly at first, then faster. You describe the train ride from Waterloo, the way the grey streets of London gave way to green hills and woods as the city fell behind. You describe the dockside at Southampton, the thousands of passengers saying their goodbyes, the chaos and excitement of boarding day. You describe your first glimpse of the Titanic herself, rising up from the water like some enormous iron cliff, and the feeling of stepping aboard, of crossing that threshold from the ordinary world into something extraordinary. You tell them about your cabin, the mahogany furniture, the electric lights that switch themselves on and off, your roommate, the young Argentine on his way to his brother's wedding, the way he sits up late reading while you're trying to sleep. You tell them about the dining saloon, the long tables and the swivel chairs bolted to the floor, the brass-rimmed portholes letting light flood in, the bewildering variety of passengers at your table, bank clerks and shopkeepers and honeymooners and travellers returning from holiday. You tell them about the band, Wallace Hartley with his violin, the string quintet playing outside the library, the tip jar being passed around. You tossed in a few pennies. It seemed the right thing to do. You tell them about the elevator, the first of its kind in second class, the young attendant who operates it, the novelty of rising through the decks without having to climb a single stair. You tell them about the library where you're sitting right now, the green armchairs, the mahogany tables, the steward who hands out books like a shopkeeper dispensing sweets. You've been reading Sherlock Holmes, you write, an old favourite. The stories feel different somehow here on the water, more vivid, more real. You tell them about the reverend you met on the promenade, his kind eyes, his easy conversation, his head cold and the helpful passenger who gave him medicine. You tell them about watching Ireland disappear behind you, about the tender bringing new passengers aboard at Queenstown, about the migrants with their heavy cases and their hopeful faces climbing the gangway into their new lives. You apologise for not writing sooner. You meant to have something ready for the mail drop at Ireland, but time got away from you. It always seems to get away from you on ships. The hours slide past like water. Before you know it, an entire day has gone by, and you've done nothing but eat and read and talk to strangers. The sun is dipping lower now. You can see it through the window, painting the clouds in shades of gold and pink. The afternoon is fading. Evening is coming. You sign the letter with love, seal it in an envelope, write the address on the front in your neatest handwriting. There's a small box outside the library door. You spotted it earlier, a little wooden receptacle for outgoing mail, collected daily and stored until the ship reaches New York. You'll drop your letter there on your way out. By the time it reaches home, you'll probably already be in America, but that's fine. Your family will understand. You gather your things and rise from the table. The library is quieter now. Some of the afternoon crowd has dispersed, heading off to prepare for dinner. You catch the clock on the wall and realise with a start how late it's gotten. Almost time to head back to your cabin. Almost time to change into your evening clothes, because dinner tonight won't be like breakfast or lunch. Dinner is an event, a proper occasion, the finest meal of the day, served in the grandest style the ship can offer. You need to look the part. You drop your letter into the little wooden box, hearing it land softly atop the others. Then you turn and make your way toward the stairs, already thinking about what you'll wear. Your evening clothes are in your case. You packed them specifically for occasions like this. Nothing too fancy, nothing that would be out of place in second class, but respectable, presentable, the kind of outfit that says you know how to behave in polite society. The corridors are busier now, passengers moving in both directions, all of them with the same idea: get changed, get ready, get to the dining saloon before all the good spots are taken. Not that you have a choice about where to sit, of course. Your seat is assigned, that little metal plaque on the back of your chair with your number on it, but still, there's something about arriving on time, about being among the first to be seated, that feels important. Like you're taking the whole thing seriously, like you're honouring the occasion. You reach your cabin and let yourself in. Your roommate is already there, standing in front of the small mirror, adjusting his tie. He glances over as you enter and nods in greeting. Getting ready for dinner? Just about to. He steps aside to give you access to the mirror. There's an easy rhythm to sharing a cabin with someone. A silent negotiation of space and time. He does his toilette while you do yours. You take turns at the wash basin. You stay out of each other's way without having to talk about it. You open your case and pull out your evening clothes. The evening clothes feel different than your day wear, stiffer, more formal, like you're putting on a costume for a role you're about to play. You button your shirt carefully, making sure everything lines up. Collar, cuffs, waistcoat. The whole ritual of getting dressed for dinner, layer by layer, until you're transformed from an ordinary traveller into someone who looks like they belong at a fancy evening affair. Your roommate finishes before you do. He gives himself one last look in the mirror, smooths down his hair, and heads for the door. "See you down there," he says. "Save me a seat." He laughs. "We have assigned seats." "Right, I know. Just testing you." The door closes behind him and you're alone with your reflection. Not bad. Not bad at all. You look respectable, presentable, like someone who knows which fork to use and how to hold a wine glass. Your family would be proud, your mother especially. She always worried you'd embarrass yourself in polite company. You adjust your tie one final time and head out. The corridors are full of passengers now, all of them moving in the same direction, toward the stairs, toward the dining saloon, toward dinner, and the variety of clothing is remarkable. Second class, it turns out, is a broad church. Some men are dressed to the nines, full white tie, starched collar, tails, the works. They look like they wandered down from first class by mistake, like they should be dining with the Astors and the Guggenheims instead of the bank clerks and the shopkeepers. Others are more casual, finer day clothes, yes, but nothing too elaborate. A nice suit, a clean shirt, presentable without being pretentious. And then there are the truly adventurous ones, the men who've embraced the latest fashion trend from America. They call it black tie, or sometimes they call it a tuxedo after some country club in New York where the style apparently originated. It's like white tie, but more relaxed, softer collar, bow tie that doesn't strangle you, no tails. You're somewhere in the middle, not fancy enough to compete with the white tie crowd, but respectable enough to hold your own. That's fine by you. You've never been one to stand out. Blending in has always suited you better. The dining saloon is transformed. It's the same room you ate breakfast and lunch in, of course. The same oak panelling, the same brass-rimmed portholes, the same long tables with their pristine white cloths, but something about the evening light, about the way the electric lamps glow against the wood, about the hum of conversation and the clink of glasses makes it feel like a completely different place. Special, that's the word. It feels special. You find your assigned seat and settle in. Most of your table mates are already there. The Russian bookkeeper and his wife, the shop owner from Leicester, a few others you recognise from earlier meals. Everyone looks scrubbed and polished and ready for a proper evening out. Champagne is being served. You accept a glass without hesitation. The bubbles tickle your nose as you bring it to your lips. It's good champagne too, crisp and dry and refreshing. Not that you're any kind of expert, but you know enough to appreciate quality when you taste it. The menu arrives and your eyes go wide. This is not like breakfast. This is not like lunch. This is a proper feast. Consommé tapioca to start. A light soup, clear and delicate, with little beads of tapioca floating in the broth. It sounds unusual, but it's supposed to be quite refined, the kind of thing they serve at fancy dinner parties in London. Then baked haddock, fresh fish, properly prepared. Not the dried, salted stuff you're used to at home. Real fish caught somewhere in the cold waters of the Atlantic and cooked to perfection by the ship's chefs. After that, a choice of mains. Curried chicken, popular in Britain since the last century, ever since the empire got its hooks into India and started bringing back spices. Spring lamb with mint sauce, or roast turkey with cranberry sauce, an American touch that's been creeping onto British tables for the past few decades. You go for the lamb, rare, very little mint sauce. You've always preferred to taste the meat itself rather than drowning it in condiments. The conversation at the table flows easily. Everyone's in a good mood. The champagne helps with that. So does the food, so does the general atmosphere of the room, which feels warm and convivial and utterly removed from the grey Atlantic rolling past outside. The pianist at the far end of the room has switched to something slower now, something elegant. You don't recognise the piece, but it suits the mood perfectly. Background music, the kind that makes you feel sophisticated just for being in the same room with it. A steward refills your champagne glass without being asked. You didn't even notice it was empty. The service on this ship is remarkable. Attentive without being intrusive. Present without being overbearing. You've been in restaurants where the waiters hover over you like vultures, watching every bite, swooping in the moment you set down your fork. Here, they seem to know exactly when you need them and exactly when you don't. The Russian dressmaker is telling a story about a client in St. Petersburg who wanted a gown made entirely of peacock feathers. Not a gown with peacock feather trim, an entire gown made of feathers. Her husband translates in fits and starts, pausing to laugh at parts that apparently don't translate well into English. She wanted to look like a bird, he explains. A very large, very expensive bird. Did she get her gown? Someone asks. The dressmaker launches into a long response in Russian, full of hand gestures and dramatic expressions. Her husband nods along, occasionally interjecting with his own comments. By the time the translation comes, half the table is already laughing, having understood the gist from the performance alone. She got her gown, she wore it once, to a ball, and a dog chased her through 3 rooms before anyone could catch it. The table erupts. You can picture it perfectly. Some society matron in a ridiculous feathered gown, running from a yapping terrier, feathers flying everywhere. The kind of story that's funny because it happened to someone else. Someone brings up Dr. Freud. You perk up at the name. You've read about him in the papers. The Austrian doctor with the wild theories about dreams and the unconscious mind. Very controversial, very modern. The sort of thing intellectuals argue about at dinner parties exactly like this one. Do you think he's aboard? Someone asks, up in first class. Freud? No idea. Why would he be? I don't know. Seems like the sort of person who might travel on a ship like this. All those rich Americans going to see him for treatment. Maybe he's going the other way. You have nothing to contribute to this particular debate. You barely understand what Freud actually does. Something about analysing people's childhood memories, something about mothers. The details escape you, but it's interesting to listen to others discuss it. Interesting to hear what people think about these modern ideas that seem to be reshaping the world. The conversation shifts. Someone mentions Roald Amundsen. Now this you know about. the Norwegian explorer, the man who raced to the South Pole and won. It was all over the papers just last month. His expedition reaching Tasmania, the confirmation that he'd beaten the British team, the news that poor Captain Scott was still out there somewhere struggling toward a goal that had already been claimed. No alcohol on the entire expedition, an American at the table cuts in. Did you read that? Not a drop. The whole way to the pole and back, and they didn't touch a single drink. You look down at your champagne glass with something like despair. Months in the frozen Antarctic, hauling sleds across endless ice, temperatures cold enough to freeze your breath solid, and no alcohol to take the edge off. Madness. Absolute madness. I couldn't do it, you say. I'd last about 3 days before I demanded to be sent home. This gets a laugh from the table. You're not much of a drinker, really. A glass of beer with lunch, champagne at dinner, nothing excessive. But the idea of going without entirely, especially in conditions like that, seems almost inhuman. The stewards arrive with the main course, and conversation gives way to eating. The lamb is excellent, tender and pink in the middle, with just a hint of char on the outside. The potatoes are creamy and buttery. The vegetables are fresh and properly seasoned. Whoever's running the kitchen knows what they're doing. This is restaurant-quality food. Hotel quality, the kind of meal you'd expect to pay good money for on land. And here you are, getting it included in the price of your ticket. The shop owner from Leicester is on his second helping of lamb. He catches you watching and shrugs. When am I going to get lamb this good again? Might as well enjoy it while I can. He has a point. You eye your own plate, wondering if you could manage a second helping yourself. Probably not. There's still dessert to consider, and you've already had the soup and the fish and more champagne than is strictly sensible. But it's tempting. It's all tempting. That's the danger of ships, you think. The meals come so frequently, and the food is so good, and there's nothing much to do between meals except sit around and digest. You're going to gain weight on this voyage. Everyone does. It's practically guaranteed. You've heard the papers claim that second class on Titanic rivals first class on other ships. You were skeptical at first. That sounded like advertising talk, marketing nonsense designed to sell tickets. But now, sitting here with a glass of champagne in your hand and a plate of perfectly cooked lamb in front of you, you're starting to believe it. If this is second class, what must first class be like? Gilded plates, servants fanning you with palm fronds, diamond-encrusted cutlery? Probably not, but the thought amuses you. Dessert arrives, choices again, plum pudding, wine jelly, American ice cream, coconut sandwich, a cheese board for those who prefer something less sweet. You go for the plum pudding. It's rich and heavy and probably too much after everything else you've eaten, but you don't care. This is a special occasion, a special night. Calories don't count on ocean voyages. Everyone knows that. The plum pudding comes doused in brandy sauce that practically glows in the lamplight. You take a bite and close your eyes for a moment. Perfect, dense and fruity and warming. The kind of dessert that makes you want to unbutton your waistcoat and settle in for a long, comfortable evening. Around you, the other passengers are making similar sounds of appreciation. Even the French honeymooners have surfaced from their bubble of mutual adoration long enough to comment on the quality of the food. The meal winds down slowly. Nobody seems in a hurry to leave. The champagne has left everyone pleasantly buzzed, and the food has left everyone pleasantly full, and the general atmosphere of warmth and conviviality makes you want to linger. This is what travel is supposed to be like, you think. Not just getting from one place to another, not just enduring the journey until you reach your destination, but enjoying the journey itself, savouring it, treating it as an experience worth having. The Titanic makes that easy. The Titanic makes that inevitable. You look around the table at the faces of your dinner companions, the Russian bookkeeper and his wife laughing at some private joke, the shop owner from Leicester, red-faced and happy after too much wine, the honeymooning couple from France who finally showed up for a meal, holding hands under the table like lovesick teenagers. Strangers, all of them. People you'd never met before yesterday, people whose lives have intersected with yours for a few brief days and will probably never intersect again, but right now, in this moment, they feel like friends, like family, almost, like people you've known forever. That's the magic of ships. That's what ocean travel does to you. It compresses time, accelerates relationships, turns strangers into intimates in a matter of hours. By now it's just about 9:30. The evening is still young, too early to head back to your cabin, too early to call it a night. You push back from the table and consider your options. A small group from your table mates is making plans. Bridge, they say, in the smoking room. Do you want to join? You hesitate. You're not much of a card player, honestly. Your aunt used to play bridge, and she tried to teach you once, years ago, but the rules never quite stuck. Something about trumps and tricks and bidding. It all seemed unnecessarily complicated, but the invitation is tempting, not for the cards themselves, but for the company, for the excuse to stay up a bit longer, for the chance to see another part of the ship you haven't explored yet. Why not? You hear yourself say. I'll give it a go. The group rises from the table, 5 of you in total, enough for a proper game with a spectator or two. You follow them out of the dining saloon and toward the stairs, leaving behind the warmth and the light and the lingering smell of good food. The elevator is crowded as usual, a small mob of passengers waiting for their turn to ride. You consider joining the queue, but one of your companions shakes his head. Stairs will be faster. He's right. By the time the cab arrives and everyone piles in, you could already be at B deck, so you climb. 1 flight, 2 flights, your buttons straining a bit after all that food, your breath coming a little harder than it should. Note to self, take fewer second helpings of plum pudding. You reach B deck slightly winded but otherwise intact. The smoking room is at the forward end of the deck through a door that opens into a haze of cigar smoke so thick you can practically taste it. Your eyes water, your nostrils sting, but you push through, following your companions into the room, and what a room it is. Oak panelling everywhere, rich and dark and gleaming in the lamplight, chairs upholstered in deep green leather, the colour of moss scattered around small tables. The whole place feels like a gentleman's club, like somewhere important men gather to discuss important things while puffing on expensive cigars. You sink into one of the green chairs. It swallows you up, soft and comfortable, exactly what your tired body needs after a long day of eating and walking and exploring. A steward appears at your elbow. He's carrying a tray of cigars and a menu of spirits. You select a cigar almost at random. Something Cuban, you think. The name on the band is unfamiliar, but it looks impressive. The steward clips the end for you, offers you a light, and suddenly you're sitting there with a lit cigar in one hand, feeling very sophisticated indeed. The spirit menu is impressive. Whiskies from Scotland and Ireland, brandies from France, rums from the Caribbean, everything you could want and plenty of things you've never even heard of. Your eye lands on a cognac. Denis Meunier, 54 years old, the menu says. You do the math in your head. That means this brandy was distilled around 1858, before the American Civil War, before your parents were even born. The bottle has been sitting somewhere, aging quietly in some French cellar, while the world changed completely around it. There's something profound about that, something almost sacred. You order a glass. The steward returns with the cigar tray as well. You examine the selection more carefully this time. There it is. Hoyo de Monterrey, Cuban. The band around the cigar is elegant, the wrapper leaf smooth and oily. This is the good stuff, the kind of cigar wealthy men smoke in their private clubs while making deals that affect thousands of lives. And here you are, a second-class passenger, smoking the same thing. The steward clips the end with a practiced snip and offers you a light. You lean in, puffing gently until the ember catches and glows orange. The first draw fills your mouth with smooth, earthy smoke, notes of cedar and leather and something almost sweet like dried fruit. You exhale slowly, watching the smoke curl toward the ceiling. Not bad at all. The cognac arrives in a beautiful crystal snifter, amber liquid catching the lamplight. You swirl it gently, the way you've seen sophisticated people do in restaurants and hotels, and bring it to your nose. The smell is incredible, warm and complex, fruit and oak and something else you can't quite name, something that speaks of age and patience and time. You take a small sip and let it roll across your tongue. Yeah, that's good. That's very, very good. Your companions are shuffling the cards, setting up for bridge. One of them is explaining the rules to another passenger who, like you, doesn't quite remember how to play. Trumps and tricks and bidding, just like your aunt used to say. It still sounds complicated, but with a Hoyo de Monterrey in one hand and a glass of 54-year-old cognac in the other, you find you don't really care. The game begins. You're paired with the shop owner from Leicester, who turns out to be surprisingly good at cards. He carries the partnership through the first few hands while you fumble along playing the wrong cards at the wrong times, apologising every few minutes for your mistakes. "Don't worry about it," he says cheerfully. "We're winning anyway." And you are, somehow. Despite your best efforts to sabotage the partnership, you keep coming out ahead. The shop owner knows what he's doing. He reads the table like a book, knows what everyone else is holding before they play it. You just try to stay out of his way and let him work his magic. Between hands, the conversation flows easily. The Russian bookkeeper tells a story about a card game gone wrong in St. Petersburg, something about a colonel who accused a banker of cheating and challenged him to a duel. The banker fled the country that same night and was never seen again. "Did he cheat?" someone asks. The bookkeeper shrugs. "Almost certainly, but nobody could prove it." "That's the trick, isn't it?" says the shop owner, dealing another hand. "Getting away with it." "Are you speaking from experience?" "Absolutely not," the shop owner says, straight-faced, then winks. "I never get caught." Everyone laughs. The cigar smoke hangs in the air, creating a pleasant haze that softens the lamplight. The green leather chairs seem to embrace you. The cognac warms your belly from the inside. This is what life should be like, you think. Good company, good drink, good tobacco, no responsibilities except to enjoy yourself. The next hand goes badly for your side. The shop owner makes a face as he calculates the score. "Your fault," he says, but he's grinning. "My fault? You're the one who bid 4 hearts. Because I thought you had something to contribute. I contributed. I contributed enthusiasm." More laughter around the table. Someone calls for another round of drinks. The steward appears almost instantly, as if he's been waiting just out of sight for exactly this moment. Fresh glasses, fresh cigars for those who want them. The night stretches on, comfortable and unhurried. Someone tells a story about a voyage on the Oceanic years ago, a card game that started after dinner and didn't end until breakfast was being served. The stewards had to bring them tea and toast at the table because they refused to break for food. Who won, you ask? Nobody. We called it a draw eventually. Everyone was too tired to count the score. That's the best kind of game, says the shop owner. The kind where winning doesn't matter. The clock on the wall ticks past 10. then past, then 11. The crowd in the smoking room is thinning, passengers drifting away one by one, heading to their cabins. The tables around you are emptying. The stewards are moving more slowly now, clearing glasses and ashtrays, with the unhurried patience of people who know the night is winding down. Your cigar, the Hoyo de Monterey, is down to a stub now. You set it in the ashtray and watch the last wisps of smoke curl up toward the ceiling. Good to the last draw, worth every penny of the tip you'll leave. The cognac glass is empty, twice refilled already over the course of the evening. You consider ordering a third, but decide against it. There's a pleasant warmth in your head, a comfortable looseness in your limbs. Any more, and you'll tip over the edge from pleasantly buzzed to properly drunk. Better to quit while you're ahead. The bridge game is winding down too. Your partner stretches and yawns. One of the other players is rubbing his eyes. The energy that filled the room an hour ago has faded into something softer, quieter. "I think that's me done for the night," someone says. Nods all around, murmurs of agreement. One by one, the players push back from the table and rise from their chairs. You stand up slowly, testing your balance. Everything seems to be working. Your legs are steady. Your head is clear enough. The cognac was strong, but not that strong. You'll make it back to your cabin without embarrassing yourself. You bid your companions good evening. Shake hands. Exchange promises to meet up again tomorrow. Maybe another game of bridge. Maybe just drinks in the smoking room. You'll see how you feel. Same time tomorrow? The shop owner asks. If I can remember how to play by then. You won't, but that's half the fun. Then you're out the door and into the corridor, leaving the smoke and the lamplight behind. The ship feels different at this hour, quieter, stiller. Most of the passengers have retired for the night. The corridors that were crowded just a few hours ago are nearly empty now. Just the occasional steward making his rounds. The occasional late-night wanderer like yourself. You pass a window and pause for a moment, looking out at the darkness. Nothing to see, really, just black. The ocean is out there somewhere, rolling and heaving beneath the ship, but you can't see it. The stars are out there too, scattered across the sky like salt on a dark tablecloth. But the glass reflects your own face back at you, lit by the corridor lamps, and the world beyond is invisible. Strange, being out here in the middle of nothing. Stranger still how quickly you've gotten used to it. This morning, standing on the promenade deck, watching Ireland recede into the distance, you'd felt a pang of something. Not homesickness exactly, just an awareness of how far you were from anything solid, anything permanent. Now, just 12 hours later, the ship feels like the most solid thing in the world, the only world that matters. England is behind you, America is ahead, but right now there's just this corridor, this ship, this night. Your footsteps echo softly on the linoleum as you make your way toward your cabin. The orange and buff tiles gleam in the electric light. You'd forgotten about the tiles. Such a small detail, but it makes the whole place feel warmer somehow, more thoughtfully designed. A steward passes you, carrying a tray of empty glasses. He nods politely. You nod back. Ships run on these small courtesies, you've noticed. The little acknowledgements between strangers, the silent agreements to treat each other with respect. You pass another window, and this time you don't stop. The darkness is still there. It will be there all night. You don't need to keep checking. It's a short walk to your cabin. One of the nice things about second class on Titanic is that everything seems to be within convenient reach of everything else. The dining saloon, the library, the smoking room, your stateroom, all clustered together in the same part of the ship. No long treks through endless corridors. No getting lost in the maze-like interior. Well, you did get lost this morning, several times. But you're learning. Another day or two and you'll know this ship like the back of your hand. The designers knew what they were doing. They understood that comfort isn't just about fancy furniture and good food. It's about convenience, about not having to think too hard. You reach your door and let yourself in. The cabin is dim. Your roommate is still awake, a book open in his lap, a small reading lamp casting a pool of yellow light across the pages. He looks up as you enter, blinks and nods in greeting. Good evening? Very good. Bridge in the smoking room. I'm terrible at it. I'm sure you did fine. I had a good partner. He did all the work. I just tried not to mess things up too badly. He smiles at that. That's the secret to most things in life, isn't it? Find someone competent and stay out of their way. Words to live by. He marks his place in the book and sets it aside for a moment. I heard them shuffling cards when I passed by the smoking room earlier. Sounded like quite the crowd. It was. Must have been 20, 30 people in there at the peak. Thinned out by the time we finished, though. Everyone heading to bed. The voyage does that to people, makes them tired in a pleasant way. All that sea air, I suppose. And the food and the champagne, that too. He picks his book back up. Well, enjoy your rest. You move quietly through the small space, trying not to disturb his reading. Your evening clothes come off piece by piece. Jacket, waistcoat, shirt. You hang them carefully in the wardrobe, the mahogany doors swinging silently on their hinges. Your nightclothes are where you left them, folded on the shelf. The wash basin offers cold water for your face. You splash some on your cheeks, feeling the shock of it drive away the last of the cognac fog. The mirror shows you a tired face but a happy one, a face that's had a good day. Brush your teeth, run a comb through your hair, and the nighttime routine, familiar and automatic. Your bunk is waiting, that plush mahogany bed with its crisp white sheets and its soft pillow. It looks impossibly inviting after everything you've done today. You climb in and pull the covers up. What are you reading? You ask your roommate. He holds up the book so you can see the cover. Something in Spanish, a novel by the look of it. Any good? My brother recommended it. Says it changed his life. He shrugs. So far, it's just making me sleepy. That's not necessarily a bad thing. On a ship, I mean. True. He turns another page. Good night. Good night. You settle deeper into the mattress, close your eyes, listen to the sounds of the ship around you, the low hum of the engines, the occasional creak of wood, your roommate turning pages, the distant murmur of voices somewhere in the corridor, passengers heading to their own cabins. It's peaceful. That's the word. Peaceful in a way that's hard to find on land, where there's always something demanding your attention, always somewhere you need to be, always something you should be doing. Here, there's nothing, just the ship, just the ocean, just this comfortable bunk and the gentle rhythm of the engines carrying you forward through the night. Your thoughts begin to slow, the sharp edges of the day softening into something hazier, something warmer. Tomorrow, you think, tomorrow will be another good day. And then you stop thinking altogether. Somewhere between waking and sleeping, your mind begins to wander. Not dreaming yet, not quite, but not fully conscious either. That strange twilight state where thoughts come unbidden and drift away before you can hold on to them. You find yourself thinking about the people you've met today. The Russian bookkeeper. What was his name? Did you ever catch it? You don't think you did. He was quiet at breakfast and lunch, letting his wife do most of the talking. But in the smoking room tonight, telling that story about the colonel and the banker, he'd come alive. His eyes had sparkled. His hands had moved expressively. There was a whole other person hiding behind that reserved exterior. You wonder what brought him to this ship, what's waiting for him in America, a new job maybe, a brother or cousin who emigrated years ago and finally sent word that there's opportunity on the other side, or maybe he's running from something, debts, trouble, a past he'd rather leave behind. Everyone on this ship has a story. That's what you're realizing. Every face you passed in the corridor, every stranger at the dinner table, every passenger huddled under a steamer rug on the promenade deck, they're all carrying something with them. Hopes, fears, secrets, plans. The French honeymooners, for instance, so wrapped up in each other they barely noticed the rest of the world existed. What will their life be like in America? Will they make it? Will they stay in love? Or will the pressures of a new country and a new language drive them apart? You hope they make it. They seemed happy, genuinely happy, in that annoying way that newlyweds are. And the shop owner from Leicester, your bridge partner, the man who carried you through hand after hand with his card shark instincts and his easy laugh. He said he was visiting relatives in Boston, but there was something else there, wasn't there? Some sadness around the edges when he talked about home. A wife who passed, maybe. Children who've grown and moved away. The trip might be less about visiting relatives and more about escaping an empty house. You're making up stories now, filling in blanks that aren't yours to fill, but that's what happens on ships. You meet people for a few days, share meals and conversations, and then you part ways and never see each other again. The gaps in their stories stay gaps forever. You can only imagine what might fill them. The reverend on the deck chair, the one with the head cold, he'd seemed so genuinely kind, the sort of person who became a clergyman because he actually believed in helping people, not because he wanted the prestige or the comfortable living. You hope his cold clears up. You hope his trip is everything he's hoping for. Your mind drifts further. You think about the young man operating the elevator, the lift attendant who wished he could go outside. He's probably asleep now too, somewhere in the crew quarters below decks. Or maybe he's still working. Maybe the elevator runs late into the night for passengers who can't manage the stairs. Up and down. Up and down. Watching the ocean through windows he never gets to open. There's a whole world on this ship that you'll never see. The engine rooms deep in the bowels of the vessel where stokers shovel coal into roaring furnaces. The kitchens where chefs have been working since before dawn to prepare the meals you've been enjoying all day. The crew cabins, cramped and functional, nothing like the mahogany elegance of second class. Hundreds of people working through the night so that you can sleep comfortably, so that the engines keep running and the ship keeps moving and breakfast is ready when you wake up. It's humbling when you think about it, how much effort goes into making your comfort seem effortless. Your thoughts circle back to the day. Breakfast feels like it happened a week ago. The ham and eggs, the buckwheat cakes with jam, the coffee that chased away the morning fog, the honeymooners holding hands under the table, the woman complaining about her unfinished stateroom. Such a small thing, an unfinished stateroom, a minor inconvenience on a brand new ship, but she'd been genuinely upset about it, as if a few missing fixtures somehow diminished the whole experience. You'd felt a twinge of annoyance at her then, but now, lying here in the dark, you think you understand. Everyone wants their voyage to be perfect. Everyone wants the reality to match the dream. And for you, so far, it has. The ship has exceeded every expectation. The food, the service, the accommodations, the company. It's all been better than you dared hope. You think about the library, the green armchairs, the way the afternoon light came through the windows while you read, Sherlock Holmes solving crimes in foggy London while the Atlantic rolled past outside. There's a copy of that book in libraries all over the world. People reading the same words in parlours and train cars and ships and hotels, the same characters, the same mysteries, the same solutions. Books are strange that way. They create connections between strangers who will never meet. You and some banker in New York might have read the exact same passage on the exact same day. You might have laughed at the same joke, felt the same tension, turned the pages at the same moments, and you'll never know it. You'll never meet. But for a few hours you were sharing something. Your mind is getting fuzzier now, the thoughts less coherent. You think about Ireland, the green hills rising from the sea, the tender chugging across the harbour, the migrants climbing aboard with their heavy cases and their hopeful faces. That young man who waved at you. You waved back. Such a small thing, a gesture across the divide between second class and third. You'll probably never see him again. Even if you did, you wouldn't recognise him. But for that one moment, you connected. Two strangers heading to the same destination, acknowledging each other across the gap. Where is he now? Somewhere below you probably, in the steerage quarters, sharing a cabin with how many others? 10, 20? You don't know how it works down there. You don't know much about anything that happens outside your own comfortable little bubble. But he's making the same journey you are, crossing the same ocean, heading for the same harbour. When the ship docks in New York, you'll all walk down the same gangways onto the same pier. Rich and poor, first class and steerage, all of you arriving together. There's something almost beautiful about that. You think about the letter you wrote, sitting in the library with the white star-lined stationery, the pen scratching across the paper, all those words pouring out of you, everything you'd seen and done and felt since boarding. Your family will read that letter in a week or two. By then, the voyage will be over. You'll be back on solid ground, going about your ordinary life, this whole experience already fading into memory. But the letter will preserve it. The letter will keep this day alive. The band and the breakfast and the green armchairs and the Irish coast. Your mother will probably cry. She always cries at letters. Happy tears, she calls them. The kind that come when someone you love is having a wonderful time far away and you wish you could be there with them. You think about tomorrow. What will you do? More of the same, probably. Breakfast in the dining saloon, a morning in the library, picking up where you left off with Holmes and Watson, maybe a walk on the deck if the weather cooperates, lunch with your table mates, another afternoon in a deck chair watching the ocean and chatting with strangers. It sounds repetitive when you lay it out like that. The same rhythm, day after day, meals and walks and reading and conversation, but somehow it doesn't feel repetitive. It feels comfortable, natural, like the ship has its own pace, its own way of moving through time, and you've simply fallen into step with it. You wonder what the weather will be like. Cold, probably. It's been cold all day, that sharp April wind that cuts right through your jacket, but maybe tomorrow will be warmer. Maybe the sun will come out properly and you can sit on deck without huddling under a steamer rug. Or maybe not. The Atlantic doesn't care about your preferences. It does what it does. You just have to adapt. Your roommate shifts in his bunk. You hear the rustle of sheets, the creak of the mattress springs, then silence again. He's asleep now. You can tell by his breathing, slow and even, the deep, unconscious rhythm of someone who's stopped fighting wakefulness. You're almost there yourself. Just a few more thoughts, a few more fragments drifting through. You think about the fourth funnel, the one that barely produced any smoke, standing at the stern this afternoon, craning your neck to look up at it. Such a strange detail. Why build a funnel that doesn't seem to do anything? Symmetry, maybe, making the ship look balanced from a distance? Or maybe it does something you don't understand. Ventilation, exhaust from the kitchens, some engineering purpose that's obvious to the designers but invisible to passengers like you. You'll probably never know, and that's fine. You don't need to know everything. Some mysteries are allowed to stay mysteries. The world is full of things you don't understand. Systems working behind the scenes, mechanisms hidden from view. The ship runs on coal and steam and the labor of hundreds of people you'll never meet. Your food arrives on plates and you eat it without thinking about the farms where the vegetables grew, or the waters where the fish were caught, or the hands that prepared everything in the galleys below. The spaghetti at lunch. Where did the pasta come from? Italy, probably. Dried and packed and shipped across the Mediterranean and then across the Channel and then loaded onto this ship and cooked in the galleys and served to you on a plate with a White Star Line logo. Such a journey for a simple dish. Such a chain of hands and ships and trains and warehouses all working together to put lunch on your table. You ate it without thinking. Everyone does. That's how civilization works. Thousands of invisible processes, all humming along in the background, making modern life possible. It's easier that way. Simpler. You can't think about everything. You'd go mad trying. Better to just enjoy it. To accept the comfort without interrogating where it comes from. To eat the meals and sleep in the beds and trust that the people responsible for making it all work know what they're doing. The engines hum beneath you, that constant, reassuring sound. You've stopped noticing it consciously, but it's there. It's always there. A vibration you feel more than hear. A presence that reminds you, even in moments of complete stillness, that you're moving. That the shore is falling away behind you. That tomorrow you'll be somewhere else entirely. Miles and miles of ocean crossed while you sleep. Your body is heavy now, sinking into the mattress. Your limbs don't want to move. Your eyelids don't want to open. Everything is soft and warm and quiet. The pillow cradles your head. The blankets wrap around your body. The ship rocks gently, so gently you barely notice it. Just enough motion to remind you that you're floating, that the solid ground is thousands of feet below you at the bottom of the ocean, and you're suspended here in this steel cocoon, trusting engineering and mathematics to keep the water out. But you don't worry about that. You don't worry about anything anymore. The last traces of consciousness are slipping away. The day is fading. The night is taking over. Somewhere far above you, the stars are out. The same stars that sailors have steered by for thousands of years. The same patterns your grandfather might have watched from a different ship on a different voyage. Constellations wheeling slowly across the sky, marking time in their ancient, patient way. You can't see them from here, but you know they're there. They're always there. Tomorrow will come, the sun will rise, breakfast will be served, the voyage will continue, but not yet, not for hours yet. For now, there's only this cabin, this bunk, this ship carrying you forward through the dark. Your thoughts are fragmenting now, breaking apart like clouds. The people you met today, the food you ate, the things you saw, all of it blurring together, dissolving. The band playing outside the library, Schumann's Happy Farmer, the violinist with the focused expression. What was his name? Hartley, Wallace Hartley. You'll have to tip him again tomorrow, if you remember. The Irish coast rising from the sea, green and lovely in the grey light, the tender approaching like a newborn cozying up to its mother. The first-class passengers strolling on the deck below you, Astor and Guggenheim, names from newspapers, faces you might recognise, living their separate lives on the same ship, the mast in front of the library door. Who designed that? What were they thinking? The dining saloon, the oak panelling, the brass portholes, the white tablecloths, the letter you wrote, the letter your family will read in a week or two. By then, you'll be in America. By then, all of this will be memory. Everything becomes memory eventually. Everything fades, but not tonight. Tonight, you're still here, still aboard, still crossing, and the ship keeps moving. The engines keep humming, the stars keep turning, and you keep sinking deeper, softer, slower, into sleep. The dreams, when they finally come, are gentle. You don't remember falling asleep. One moment you were thinking about Wallace Hartley and the band, about the letter you wrote, about the Irish coast disappearing behind you. The next moment, nothing, a gap in time, a skip in the record of your consciousness. And now this, these soft, formless dreams that drift through your sleeping mind like mist through a valley. You dream of home. Not the whole thing, just pieces. The kitchen table where you ate breakfast as a child, the sound of your mother humming while she worked, the creak of the third stair from the bottom, the one that always announced your late-night trips to the bathroom. Small things, ordinary things. The kind of details you never think about when you're awake, but that live somewhere deep in your memory, waiting for sleep to set them free. You dream of the ocean. Not the grey Atlantic rolling past the ship, but something older, something from childhood, a beach holiday maybe, sand between your toes, the shock of cold water on hot skin, your father's voice calling you back from the waves. The ocean has always been there, hasn't it? At the edge of your life, the boundary between the world you know and all the worlds you don't. You grew up on an island, after all. The sea was never far away. And now you're crossing it. Right now, while you dream about beaches and childhood summers, you're being carried across thousands of miles of water, propelled by steam and steel toward a continent you've never seen. The dreams shift. You dream of the ship, but not as you know it. In the dream, Titanic is alive. Not just a machine, but a creature, a great iron whale gliding through the darkness, her engines breathing, her hull flexing with each swell. She knows where she's going. She doesn't need maps or compasses or officers on the bridge. She simply knows, the way a bird knows south, the way a salmon knows home. Some ancient instinct built into her rivets and plates, guiding her toward New York. You're inside her now, part of her. Your heartbeat synchronized with the rhythm of her engines. Your breathing matched to the rise and fall of her hull. Where she goes, you go. Her journey is your journey. Her destination is your destination. It's a strange dream, the kind that doesn't make sense when you try to describe it later, but it feels right, it feels true. This ship has become your world. For these few days, she's everything. Home and transport and hotel and restaurant and social club, all wrapped in one enormous steel package cutting steadily westward through the night. The dreams fade, come back, fade again. Time doesn't work the same way in sleep. An hour might feel like a minute might stretch into an hour. The clock on the wall keeps ticking, but you're not part of that world anymore. You're somewhere else, somewhere outside of time. Your body is doing what bodies do when they sleep. Repairing itself, consolidating memories, processing the thousands of small experiences that make up a day, tucking them away in whatever corner of the brain they belong in. All that walking, all that eating, all that talking and watching and reading and thinking, it takes a toll, even when you don't notice. Sleep is how you pay it back. Sleep is how you get ready for tomorrow, and tomorrow will come. It always does. The sun will rise over the eastern horizon, painting the clouds in shades of pink and gold. The stewards will begin their rounds, knocking softly on cabin doors, offering tea to passengers who are already stirring. The dining saloon will fill up again. The smell of bacon and eggs and fresh bread will drift through the corridors. And you'll be there, sitting at your assigned table, nodding to your table mates, ordering the buckwheat cakes again, probably because they were really quite good. Another day on the water, another 24 hours of this strange, suspended life, another step closer to New York. What will the city be like? You've imagined it so many times. The harbour, the docks, the towering buildings you've seen in photographs, the streets crowded with people from every corner of the world, the noise, the energy, the overwhelming newness of it all. Your cousin emigrated 5 years ago. His letters describe a city that never sleeps, trolley cars rattling down cobblestone streets at midnight, restaurants open until dawn, theatres and music halls, and a kind of restless ambition that makes London seem sleepy by comparison. He loves it. He says he could never come back to England, that the old country feels slow and small now, that once you've tasted America, nothing else quite satisfies. You're not sure you believe him. You love England, love the green hills and the familiar streets and the rhythm of a life you understand, but you're curious. You want to see for yourself. You want to stand in the middle of Manhattan and feel what your cousin felt, that rush, that sense of possibility. Maybe you'll understand, maybe you won't. Maybe it takes more than a visit to feel what the emigrants feel. Maybe you have to burn your bridges, sell everything you own, leave with no intention of coming back. That's not you. You're a tourist, a visitor. You'll see the sights and eat the food, and then you'll go home. Your roots are in English soil. They always will be. But still, you're curious. You want to understand what draws so many people across this ocean, what makes them leave everything behind for a place they've never seen, what magic America holds that makes the risk worth taking. You'll find out soon enough. A few more days and the mystery will reveal itself. But imagination is never quite right, is it? The real thing is always different, bigger, smaller, louder, quieter, more colourful or less colourful than you expected. The gap between what you picture and what you find is where surprise lives. You're looking forward to being surprised. You're looking forward to standing on that deck as the harbour approaches, watching the city grow larger and more detailed with each passing minute, feeling your heart beat faster as the gangway is lowered and the moment finally arrives. The moment when this voyage ends. The moment when you step off this ship and onto American soil for the first time. What happens after that? You don't know. You have plans, of course, addresses to visit, people to see, things to do, but plans are just guesses about the future. The future itself is unknowable. It unfolds one moment at a time, surprising you at every turn. That's what makes it exciting. That's what makes it worth living. The dreams have stopped now. You're not dreaming anymore. You're just sleeping, floating in that deep, quiet place where nothing happens, where time doesn't exist, where you're not even really you anymore, just a body in a bed, breathing and healing and waiting for morning. The ship moves through the night. Her bow parts the water, her propellers churn the sea behind her, her funnels release their steady plumes of smoke into the cold Atlantic air. 3 of them, anyway. The 4th one barely smokes at all. You still don't know why. Something to do with ventilation, maybe. Or symmetry. Or some engineering reason that would make perfect sense if someone explained it to you. Not that it matters. The ship works. That's what matters. The ship works and you're aboard and the journey continues whether you understand the details or not. Inside, over 1,000 passengers sleep in their bunks, rich and poor, first class and steerage, young and old, families and solitary travellers, honeymooners and widowers, emigrants fleeing poverty and tourists seeking adventure. Each one wrapped in their own dreams, their own hopes, their own fears, all of them being carried forward together, whether they know it or not. The French honeymooners wrapped in each other's arms, dreaming of the life they'll build together. The Russian bookkeeper dreaming of whatever bookkeepers dream about. The shop owner from Leicester, perhaps dreaming of cards and cognac and good company, and you, dreaming of nothing at all, floating in the deep, quiet darkness of real sleep. The crew works through the night. Officers on the bridge, watching the horizon, checking the instruments, making the small adjustments that keep the ship on course. Stokers in the engine rooms, shoveling coal, feeding the fires that power this enormous machine. Stewards preparing for morning, laying out silverware, folding napkins, making sure everything is ready for the passengers when they wake. The ship is never really asleep. She just pretends to be. Behind the quiet corridors and the darkened portholes, everything keeps running. Everything keeps moving. The heart of this mechanical giant never stops beating, and you're part of it now. One of the 1,000 souls she's carrying. One of the stories she's transporting from one shore to another. What will you tell people when you get home? How will you describe this voyage? The words don't exist yet. You haven't found them, but they're forming somewhere in your sleeping mind. Impressions solidifying into sentences, experiences crystallizing into anecdotes. You'll tell them about the dining saloon, the oak paneling, the brass portholes, the way the light came through in the morning. You'll tell them about the band, Wallace Hartley with his violin, the tip jar being passed around, Schumann's Happy Farmer echoing off the wood-panelled walls. You'll tell them about the library, the green armchairs, the steward who handed out books, the hours you spent with Sherlock Holmes while the ocean rolled past outside. You'll tell them about the people, the Russian bookkeeper, the French honeymooners, the shop owner from Leicester who was better at bridge than anyone you've ever met, the reverend with the head cold and the kind eyes. You'll tell them it was the most extraordinary voyage of your life, and they'll believe you because it was written all over your face the moment you walked through the door. But that's later. That's weeks from now. That's a future that hasn't happened yet. For now there's only this cabin, this bunk, this ship. Your roommate sleeping in the bed across from you, his book finally closed, his breathing slow and steady, the engines humming their quiet song beneath the deck. The stars wheeling overhead, invisible but present, marking the hours until dawn, and you in the middle of it all, safe, warm, comfortable, exactly where you're supposed to be. The Titanic carries you forward, through the darkness, through the cold, through the vast, empty expanse of the North Atlantic, toward morning, toward breakfast, toward another day of this wonderful, impossible, once-in-a-lifetime voyage. You don't know what tomorrow will bring. You never do. That's part of being alive. But you know it will bring something. Another day of experiences, another day of memories, another day of this strange, suspended life on the water. And that's enough. That's more than enough. For now, you sleep, deep and dreamless and complete. The ship takes care of the rest. She knows the way. She's done this before. Her officers and her crew and her engines and her compass will guide her through the night. They don't need your help. They don't need your worry. All they need is for you to rest, to sleep, to let go of the day that's past and prepare for the day that's coming. So that's what you do. You rest, you sleep, you let the rhythm of the engines rock you deeper into unconsciousness. And somewhere far above you, on the bridge, an officer looks out at the stars and makes a note in the log. April 11th, 1912. Clear skies, calm seas, all quiet. The ship sails on, the night continues, and you sleep peacefully, deeply, completely, safe in your bunk, safe on this mighty ship, safe as you've ever been anywhere in your life. The morning will come when it's ready. Until then, there's nothing to do but float, nothing to do but dream, nothing to do but let the ship carry you forward through the darkness toward whatever waits on the other side. New York, America, the future, but not yet, not for days yet. For now, just this, just sleep, just peace. Just the gentle motion of the ship and the quiet hum of the engines and the knowledge that everything is exactly as it should be. Close your eyes. Let go. The night will hold you. The ship will carry you, and when you wake, the sun will be shining on the water, and another beautiful day aboard the Titanic will be waiting, but that